Hey guys, welcome back. I'm going to be working on these motorcycle parts today. Now, first thing I need to do is I need to get some fiberglass work done to this one. Okay, so basically what I need to do is see how this is flaring out. Well, he doesn't want it to do that. I guess the exhaust or something came through here at one point, but it's changed up a little bit. So now we need to kind of take it back from here and kind of flare it in to kind of look like the other side. See how this just has a little bit of a hump here versus this huge hump up here. So what I'm thinking is grabbing, I got my air saw, thinking about cutting out this piece here, maybe making a couple cuts in it. Maybe we can take this piece and push it down and maybe graft it into the existing rather than making a whole new piece. Whether or not that's going to work, I don't know. Haven't tried this yet. But if I cut it here, along here, maybe back to there, then I make another cut up here, back to there, on both sides, maybe we could take this, even if I have to score it a little bit, and then maybe we can kind of get it to lay down. So let's cut it and see what it looks like. Just going by eye. I have nothing to go off of, nothing to reference other than this edge right here. Just trying to get it close to what that one looks like. So if I could push this down, we could fill in the pieces that are missing with new fiberglass and mat. I can't really go too much lower on this side and go a little bit, but I got this hole here that I want to try to keep. I don't really want to get into the hole itself. I'd like to try to keep that piece if possible, just to kind of give it a little bit of shape. Now obviously it's going to be different than the other side, but we're just trying to get it flatter like this side. And I'm pretty good, pretty darn close height-wise right there. So I think what I'm going to do is probably do the fiberglass work from the back side because it's already rough fiberglass. So what I need to do is kind of set this up like this. Figure out how I'm going to prop this up. Maybe I can put a screw there to hold it. And then we can work on doing a little bit of grinding in here and get some matte and fiberglass resin and kind of build this up on the inside here. A couple good layers. And then after that is cured, we can flip it over and we'll just do Bondo glass on the outside. So let me grab a little grinding wheel so we can scuff that up. Just want to put a little bit of a texture on that fiberglass, even though it has some texture. Just want to roughen it up a little bit more just to give the resin something to bite into. I'm going to get that. I'm going to get some mat and gloves and stuff like that, and I'll be right back. Okay, let's just rough this up real quick. This ready for bodywork tomorrow because I want to have it in primer tomorrow. All these parts, these fiberglass parts, I want to get into primer tomorrow. So I need to get these couple parts close tonight so that tomorrow I can finish them up. Okay, so I forgot to figure out how I'm going to hold this. I'm going to grab a screw and a washer and stuff. A piece of plastic. Take a piece of this garbage bag. I'll put this piece of garbage bag down so that the garbage bag will stick to the piece of fiberglass rather than the fiberglass sticking to a piece of wood. It'll be easier to grind off the plastic bag than it will the wood. So I'm going to stick a screw into this hole first. I'm just leaving that there as kind of like a filler piece to make it easier for me to put the mat down. That's really the only purpose that's serving now, which is fine. I just need a way to not have to fill in such a big area with mat. Plus, if I need to grind through that piece afterwards, I can. So let's mix up some fiberglass resin. Cut some pieces of fiberglass too. Some mat here. This is just woven fiberglass mat. Stuff works really well. Got to put it a couple layers thick though. I think 4 pieces will probably be enough. Now we didn't mix up this, and I always forget the ratio on this. It is where's it at? Ten drops of hardener or 6 tablespoons of resin with a 1/4 tablespoon of hardener. Yeah, we'll guess. Usually end up putting too much hardener anyways, but I'm just gonna use the rest of this tube. Gotta thoroughly mix this stuff. Gotta get that resin and hardener completely mixed together. If you just stir it like that and quit, chances are there's gonna be areas in here that are not mixed thoroughly and they're gonna stay sticky on you. So thoroughly mixing this is a very important process or step that you need to take. All right, let's go over here and work on putting this down. So first thing you want to do when you're doing this is you want to coat the piece with fiberglass resin first. So you really want to get this coated up so that it's nice and wet. Everywhere that mat's going to go. We're going to take our first piece of mat. Probably should go get my gloves on. Go grab my gloves. I'm going to let it overhang past the panel because it doesn't matter. It'll get trimmed back afterwards. So all we're doing is building up the back side so that we have something to work with on the front side. So I'm pushing it into this wetted area, but you need to really saturate this mat with resin. It has to be completely coated, almost to the point where you can't even notice that you put it on. It actually will take the color of the yellow everywhere else, and it will almost look like you didn't put a piece on. You could also soak the mat in resin and then pull it out of the resin and apply it to the panel as well, but you still need to brush it in. What I'm doing is I'm pushing on this mat with the paintbrush and I'm getting air bubbles out between the mat and the resin. And the piece of fiberglass that we're working on, this panel. So we're gonna put another coat over top. We're just gonna keep layering it up. And this is what's gonna give it strength. Same thing again, we wanna really saturate this. And that's why I put that bag down, because obviously there's resin pouring onto the front side of this piece, which in turn is going onto the wood, but instead it's getting stuck to the plastic. So I'll be able to unscrew this and remove it off the piece of wood without it sticking to the wood. Carbon fiber is the same way. You do the basic same process with carbon fiber as you would with this. And I'm okay if the shape is a little off on the front side. No big deal. I can grind it down and use that Bondo glass to give it the final shape that I'm looking for. I just need to build the back of this up so I have something to be able to grind on the front side. If we were using the other mat, it's like not a woven mat like this, but it's kind of like crisscrossed. Once that was put into the resin, you wouldn't even see it at all. But this stuff to me is a little bit more durable, I think. Edges are really important. That's what's going to kind of bond everything together. So that's pretty much it. I mean, it's real easy to do. Really not much to it. I'm just putting down some extra to kind of give it a little bit more thickness, let it cure, let it do its thing. It's going to run out. I know that. Probably should put this cup on the floor, keep it from dripping all over the floor of the shop. So other than that, that is it. It's going to sit like that until it cures. It takes about 2 hours. Once that cures, we can remove it off of there and start fixing it on the front side. By whatever we need to do, we'll grind it down and make it fit. Now, while I'm waiting for that to dry, rather than doing nothing else, let's figure out this front fender. This front fender needs to be cut. He marked it here. He also wrote on here he wants this gloss white, just so that we know. I don't know what these are. I don't remember what he said about these. I'm gonna have to ask him about that. I wonder if these get filled in straight. So, but first he wants this cut down. This is too long for him. He wants it cut down. So we're gonna cut it down once again with the air saw. Put my glasses on. Grab the air saw. I guess we'll just go straight across it right where he has it marked pretty much. And then we need to round these edges, radius these edges like it had before. Grab a marker, I'll draw it out. All right, let's see about drawing this. Kind of try to match what we had existing. That looks pretty good. Not bad. Don't think I'll be able to use this over here though. Can at least mark how far back it went. Actually looks really good. So I can just shape that a little bit more with the sander. I need to message him about these. There's an X there. I wonder if they're getting filled in smooth across. which isn't a big deal. We'll just grind it down with some 36 grit, use some Bondo glass, and flatten these out. So I'm gonna go ahead and message him now. That sits perfectly flat. I like that. I like the way that looks. Actually, yeah, I could shape that tiny little bit less with the grinder itself. I'm gonna leave that as is. Okay, I'm actually taking the heat gun and drying this resin a little bit because I don't want it to keep running off the board, because then that defeats the purpose where I poured some in there to make it thicker. So I just trying to harden it up enough so that it turns more of a gel and starts to get hard, and then that'll keep it from running off the panel, which I've only been doing this for about 30 seconds and it's already starting to harden up. Just speeding the process along. If I were to put this in the sun outside, it would dry really fast as well. Pretty much the same as using a heat gun. Fiberglass resin when it dries, it gets really hot. That's just what it does. It's a chemical reaction. I'm just speeding the process up even faster by putting a little heat on it. But I can already touch this. It's warm, don't get me wrong. I'll bet you in about 15 minutes I could probably at least get it unscrewed and off the board. And then just let it set for a little bit so I don't start putting pressure on it and possibly cracking something or something like that. But probably about 15 minutes we'll be able to take those 2 screws out, get it off the board, and possibly peel off that plastic if it'll peel off. Okay, let's see if this is dry enough so that we can get it off the piece of wood here. Feels like it is. All right, so that's the mess that we're left with. It's got to dry a little bit more. We could probably cut this off first before it's fully cured. It's actually pretty dry. I'll probably grind it. I'm going to put a mask on for this part because I don't really feel like getting fiberglass in my lungs. I'm going to wear some goggles as well. Just keep it out of my eyes. Okay, that's pretty much our shape right there. We just need to mix up a little bit of the Bondo glass, put a light coat on there just to fill in these deeper spots, a little bit of body filler, and that's it, guys. That's how quick you can fix this fiberglass stuff. Once you learn how to do it, it's very fast. You grab this other piece here, and you can see how this edge looks here. See how that looks? And here, we're almost to the same as the other side. Need to build this a little bit flatter right here. Might grind it a hair more. And you know what, I'm gonna put the fiberglass Bondo on there first. Short strand fiberglass, whatever you wanna call it. So let's get that mixed up and put on there, let that dry a little bit. I'm probably gonna let that dry for about an hour, just to make sure it's really adhered well. So we'll come over here and get a little bit of this Bondo glass. That's just the brand I'm using. It's called Bondo glass. It's just Bondo brand. I get it at Home Depot. It's like 20 bucks a quart, so it's fairly cheap. It works really well. I don't have any issues with it. We're gonna use the bigger spreader here, the medium-sized one. But as you can tell, within an hour, because I heated it with heat, I was able to get that cut apart, fiberglass back together to the shape I was looking for, dry it, grind it, and now we're putting the fiberglass filler on it. So this stuff doesn't need to take all day to get done. You know, if you know what you're doing and you just follow a few steps, you can get there pretty quickly. Get a paint stick here. This is a newer can, and you'll see the resin is at the top of the can. So you kind of want to make sure you mix that up real good. Get the resin mixed into the fiberglass. So if you look here, this is just real short strands of fiberglass. It's basically the same stuff that was in that mat that I used, but it's shredded and it's put in with resin. And I don't know what the other filler surfaces, the filler is they use, that they mix the resin and the fibers into. It's obviously some kind of like a Bondo material, but I don't know what it is. So that I can't, I'd have to look it up. But we don't need a ton here because we are really close to where we need to be. And after this coat, we are going to put a little bit of Bondo on it. Body filler, Bondo. We're going to use Summit brand body filler. And we are going to, after this dries for about an hour, we'll put that on, sand this down and put that on. And then we'll just get it to the shape that we want it. And once we get all these parts shaped, we can get them in primer. Shouldn't be too big a deal. Oh, make sure you knead up your container of hardener before you use it. I had already done it earlier. I was kind of playing on my phone, working it back and forth while I was waiting for that to dry. Just want to mix this up real good. Don't stir it. It will change color as the filler and the hardener mix together. As you can see, it's turning a little bit of a lighter green than what it was when it came out of the can. And this is going to give it a really solid surface. It's going to just really strengthen this up the rest of the way. It's already really strong because we put a decent amount of fiberglass on here. That will never go anywhere. So what I do is, because I have those voids from the mat that went on the backside, I like to use this because it's just really strong and it really fills in the voids, and this stuff won't shrink back as much as body filler. If I were to just fill those deep voids in with body filler, which you can do, there's nothing wrong with that, but you're running the risk of that stuff drying and shrinking back on you, and it's just going to cause you more headaches. So by using this is going to dry real hard and solid and give it a nice surface to work from. So what I'm doing here is kind of building this edge up. Just want it to kind of look like the same all the way down. I mixed up too much, but that's okay. It happens. And we just got to get it close, and we will touch it up with the body filler afterwards. But let's just get our main built up area with this nice short strand fiberglass. We're not looking for perfection with this. You're not gonna get it. You're not gonna be able to spread this perfectly smooth. Just doesn't work like that. So you just get it to where you want it to look. And then we're gonna let that set. I'm gonna eat dinner while that's setting up. Come back out here. We're gonna knock that down. We're gonna get it body filled. We're gonna get this piece and the other side piece, probably the rear fender and the gas tank. We're gonna get all that stuff prepped and maybe even primered on this video. I can't do anything with the front fender yet. The guy I'm doing this for is a buddy of mine. He's out of town with his family this week. I did send him a text message. He hasn't responded yet. I don't know if he's gonna respond today or not. Not a big deal. The two fenders are the last thing that he needs to put this bike together. The next things that he needs pretty much are the gas tank, the side covers, and the spring. But we're gonna try to get all of it done for him all at once so he doesn't have to keep making trips out here. Now, we're putting decals on the side here like we did, you know, with those other parts. I'm gonna have him come out and put the decals on. So after I put the color on, I'm gonna have him stick the decals. Just for the simple fact that he's got a real good idea where he wants them in his head to go on there. So I'm gonna let him do that. He's good at doing it. So why not let him put them where he wants them exactly? Then, you know, it's on him for where he puts it. Because, you know, that's where it gets kind of tricky with some of this custom stuff is you might think, even though he sent you pictures, doesn't mean you're going to place it exactly where he wants it. So if you put it on and it's a little crooked or something, then it's on you to fix. So I'd rather have him do that part. So I'll be back in a little bit, guys. Okay, so it's been about an hour. This is nice and set up. Before I start sanding on that, I talked to the guy. I need to fill this out. So I'm going to use the same Bondo glass, and he knows that it's going to be thick right here because this fender was not designed originally for this bike. These are where the forks had gone through, but obviously the forks must be wider apart. So we're going to straighten this out, and it'll just have to be thick right here. But I'm going to grind this with my 36 grit disc and fill it with some of the short strand fiberglass. While this is drying, we'll sand that down. I'm just going to do this off camera. Then we're going to sand this down and start getting this final body worked and get both of these sanded down and ready for primer. I'd like to shoot primer tonight on all these parts. So what's going to happen was I originally had talked about putting the stickers on, having him stop by and put the stickers on. He's not going to be back till Tuesday. So I'm probably going to end up doing it myself because I really want to try to get these done for him come Tuesday so that he can just take all the parts with him and be able to finish putting the bike together. So I'm going to go ahead, get these filled in, come back. We're going to knock that down with some sandpaper. I'm going to get my vacuum out and my sander and everything and hook that up now so that we don't make a big mess in here. Okay, let's knock this down with some 80 grit and the DA sander. Okay, that feels pretty good there. Just gonna wipe it off real good. We're gonna mix up a little bit of filler. And put a little bit of filler on it, and I think we'll be good. Now I'm gonna use an icing, a glazing putty, icing, whatever it's called on these. And we're just gonna put a thin coat on there, and we're gonna hand sand it next time so that we can give it a good shape. Because clearly you're not gonna get a really good shape when you're trying to use a DA on a sharp radius like that. So I'm gonna try to apply this really straight, and then I'm gonna hand sand it to form it to match where I want it to be. So we're gonna use this fantastic glazing putty. Mix it up just like everything else. Gotta get this lid out of here. There's a piece of foil in here that seals it up. After this, while this is drying, I'm going to work on sanding all the other parts down. And probably going to sand a lot of it by hand. I'll hit the flat areas with the DA with 180 grit, but all the other areas I'm just going to sand by hand. And I'm only going to sand with 180 grit because we're going to use 2K primer on all these parts. So I want the primer to have something good to bite into. There's no real reason to put 320 down because the 2K primer is going to fill in the 180 grit sanding marks. So let's go over there, put a coat of this on. Once again, don't stir it. Just kind of fold it over onto itself. Make sure you get it all good and mixed up. Right now there's a little bit of unmixed at the edge of the blade there. You got to make sure you get all that mixed up, because if you put that on, it's not going to want to cure right. I have the camera zoomed in a little bit more today just so that you can get a closer look on what I'm doing. Okay, we're going to have to work a little fast. It's kind of warm in here. Yep, it's already hardening. I'm just gonna leave it like that. Thought it was gonna harden up real quick. Yep, can't do anything else with it. If something doesn't look right, we'll just have to mix up a little bit more. Okay, so I swapped it out for some 180 grit. I'm gonna hit all the flat spots on that piece, but not the edges. I'm gonna hit the edges by hand. So all I could do is like get all this flat area sanded down, then I'll just hit all the edges with some sandpaper by hand. piece of 180 grit sticky back. I just folded it in half and stuck it to each other. So now I can just go around and hit all the edges by hand. And that's going to keep the radiuses round rather than using this on this edge and making yourself a flat spot right down the side of the panel. You want to try to avoid doing that. So basically I'm just going to sit here and sand down all these loose parts just like I'm doing right now. All of the rounded edges. I'll hit the flat edges with the DA sander, and then I'll be back in a little bit and we will start shaping that piece down. This filler is just about dry, so probably about 10 minutes I'll give it and we'll start shaping that. Okay, let me show you how I'm going to start shaping this. I probably won't sand the whole thing on camera, but so I'm kind of going every which direction, just trying to get this to match the old part. So I'm going to go ahead and get this all sanded down with 80 grit and then 180 grit, and then we'll take a look at it. Okay, this part looks really good. It's sanded down with 180 all the way to 180 grit, and it's ready for primer. I'm real happy with these results. Not a ton of filler on it, but it feels good. So once I primer it, we'll see what it looks like. I got a little pinhole right here. A little pinhole in the fiberglass I need to fill in. So correction, need to fix a little spot. But we should have to fill in that little pinhole there, and this is ready for primer. The other piece is ready for primer. Almost all the parts are ready for primer. Now, on this fender, I'm working on this now, and this body line right here on the fender did not go all the way through because it was indented here. So I have to make this body line because it was missing. So I sanded it down with the DA. I'll show you on this side. I haven't done this side yet. So let me show you how I did that to get it roughed in. Once I put the other filler on it, I'll have to use a block and finish it off. But let me show you here how I kind of came up with the body line. Forgot to put sandpaper on. So what I'm going to do is use the edge of the DA sander and kind of just create the indented part of the line. It's hard to see, but I have a body line started there. It's a little high right there. I need to knock that part down a little bit. That I'll probably just hit it by hand real quick. And it's always good when you're using like a fiberglass fender, to get your shape first made out of the fiberglass material, you know, I'm using this short strand fiberglass. You don't want to just put body filler on the edge here real thick, because it's going to be weak and it's going to break off. This has those little fibers of hair in it, so it's spanning across the filler rather than, you know, just having nothing in it and just a glob of filler on there. So I'm going to go ahead and mix up some filler, fill this in a little bit more. I got a couple other areas I have to hit on the other pieces. I'm going to sand them down, come back, we're going to take a look at them. Hopefully everything's ready. Then we'll put a couple coats of 2K primer on it. We do not have to use epoxy primer because we don't have anything bare metal. So no epoxy primer needed. But we have to wax and grease to remove these really well. So we'll hit them with wax and grease remover, and then we'll hit it with the window cleaner. Just because these are fiberglass parts, I don't know what they used in the mold to release them from the mold. Could be an oily substance, you never know. So it's always best to really wash these fiberglass parts down, especially when they're brand new, because it could have some sort of an oily residue from that material. So I'm going to go ahead and finish prepping all the body work. We're not worrying about the spring because the spring just needs to be sanded down and painted. We don't have to do any body work to the spring. So I just need to get these parts ready, and then I'll come back, we'll get them in the spray booth, we'll wipe them down, we'll get them primered, probably 2 to 3 coats of 2K primer, and that should be all we need. So what I'm going to do with these fenders is just take this block sander and I'm just going to follow the curve. I'm going to follow this body line with the edge of the sander, and that's how I'm going to create this body line back that was missing in the middle. So I've got the gas tanks ready for primer. That's ready for primer. This other side cover is ready for primer. I'm going to get these 2 fenders ready for primer now, and this, which should just need to be scuffed down. I haven't really looked at it really closely yet, but I think it's in pretty good shape. This was in good shape. It had a nick missing out of the fiberglass right here in the corner, and I fixed that. So this is ready. So I will be back in a little bit. Okay guys, all the parts are sanded down in the spray booth. Just wanted to show you something out here real quick. Wednesday or Thursday, I ordered a 3rd garage door. So where those 2 windows are, I'm going to put a 3rd garage door. Okay, same size as these 2, but there's going to be one there. I ordered it in brown. I'm going to switch all the trim on this building to brown. I'm going to spray these doors brown. I hate the white. They get dirty, and it's just, the house has a lot of brown trim on it up there, so I might as well just make this brown back here. So I'm going to put a 3rd garage door in, because originally I was only going to pour concrete to here this year. Okay, but I'm going to go all the way to this window this year. So I'm going to knock this building right in half. I'm going to pour exactly half of this building this year with concrete. There's going to be a wall right there, so I have to put a garage door in here so I can get to the other cars over there. So I just figured I'd share that with you real quick. And this project's getting started real soon here, probably a couple weeks out. The garage door is supposed to be in by the 8th of August. Once that comes in, I can move some stuff around, get that framed in, get the garage door guy here to put that up. I was going to put it up, but I want to change the tracks on these garage doors and stuff, and I want to move another garage door in the back. So I think I'm just going to have him come out and do it all. It's just one thing I don't have to worry about, which is usually not like me, because I usually do everything myself. These garage doors, me and my buddies put up ourselves, but I want to take the tracks and follow the angle of the ceiling, which means you got to order them. And I don't really know, I'm not like a garage door expert. So I think when it gets to that and he says that the springs need to be changed and stuff like that, I think at that point it's just better to have him do it. He's been here before. He's actually fixed this garage door for me in the past. The garage door opener broke and it came slamming down. I'm going to have my buddy's metal brake here, so I'm going to fix this piece of trim here that got dented up from plowing snow. So I'm going to get all that stuff cleaned up. Eventually I want to put a lean-to out here, maybe 10 feet out, all the way down this 64-foot area over here. It'd be nice to be able to have that with these doors open and have that lean-to and stuff. So figure I'd just give you a quick update on what I'm planning on doing with that. So let's go in the spray booth. I already blew the parts off. We're going to blow them off one more time. We're going to wax and grease remove them, and we are going to I got all my yard drainage fixed and everything too. That stuff I just kind of did off camera, but anyways, we're going to go in here, we're going to blow them off again. We're going to use the wax and grease remover and then the window cleaner, and then after that we are going to spray a couple coats of 2K primer. So first thing I need to do is get a can of 2K primer on the mixer, because you got to mix this stuff extremely well because it settles to the bottom of the can. So if you don't stir this for a while and you just pour off the top, you're going to end up with, at the end of the can you're going to end up with a real thick bottom, and you're going to be using a bunch of thinner material. So I like to let this go for 15 minutes. Now look at that thing, how it's not wanting to spin at first, because all the solids fell to the bottom of that can. Watch, in a second here, it'll start spinning quicker. But that's what I'm talking about. That's how thick this stuff is. See now how it broke free? So now it's actually broke free that heavy stuff at the bottom of the can. Now there's two agitators in there. They're tilted on an angle. So as this spins, it kind of just works it around and makes it all the same consistency throughout. You can use the paint shaker, but to be honest with you, this works better than the paint shaker. So this is gonna mix for 15 minutes while I am blowing this stuff off and using wax and grease remover on it. Okay, I gotta tape off this gas tank before I start priming. Don't want to get primer in those plastic threads or on this aluminum pipe. This gas tank's already been sealed on the inside. The guy did the sealer on the inside of the tank, so if you don't seal these fiberglass tanks, especially the older ones, you'll end up with your paint job will start to bubble in places, because these old fiberglass tanks, the vapors from the gas will literally start going through the fiberglass and bubble your paint on the outside. So you've got to put a protective coating inside this gas tank. If you don't do that, you will always end up with paint on these fiberglass tanks bubbling up on you in the future. Okay, so I have my wax and grease remover here. We're going to really wet these parts down. We want this stuff to run off of them. We want it to take the contaminants and stuff and run off the panel. So basically we're just going to take it and just soak it down, let it sit for a minute, and then wipe it with a lint-free towel. Try to go off the panel. So go like this, off the panel. Don't go in circles, because it's all you're doing is taking any of your contaminant and you're just swirling it around and you're not getting it off of the part. So just work it off the part, work its way down. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe all these down, and then I'm going to use the Safeway window cleaner. After that, and I'll wipe it down with window cleaner. I'm just going to do it off camera, and then at that point the primer will be ready. We're going to stick a couple good coats of primer on these, just let them dry. Okay, while I'm letting that primer, it's got another 5 minutes or so to go, I want to show you something. These cheap spray guns I've been using, they work extremely well. I found a faulty part with them. So I've been using this gun for probably 6 months, maybe a little less, I don't remember. But there is a faulty part in here. This thing started leaking air the other day, and it's coming from right in here, okay? So where this needle slides into the housing right here, there is it's like a plastic style material sleeve that goes in there, and it wore out. Now these guns are $75 plus shipping and tax. It's about $80 or so shipped. I have 3 other ones because I'm giving one away. There's 4 right now. Actually, I ordered another one just to have it. So I have another one coming. But I did find parts from AliExpress from China. They were like 10 bucks. So I ordered a couple of the part that went bad because I want to try to change the part in this and see if this will keep working. But you got to keep in mind, I use this a lot more than the average person is going to use their gun. I mean, most people that are watching these videos on YouTube are do-it-yourselfers that are going to maybe paint once a month once every couple months, this gun's gonna last years. I'm using this thing a couple times a week, and I'm getting that kind of use out of it, and it just now started breaking down on me. And it's still working, but it's releasing air out of here, and you don't want it to release air out of here. If you start releasing air before it comes out of the gun, what's gonna happen is you're gonna have an air pressure drop right in this area, and it's gonna screw up how this gun sprays, because it's not gonna be spraying out. It's not gonna atomize the material correctly, because it's not gonna be putting out the right pressure. So the part that went bad, I found it in the instructions here, and it's a little, I don't have it, I had the gun apart to check it, but it is a little part. Let's see if I can find it on here. It's right here. It's this little bushing right there that is leaking on this. Now I see there's a number 30 in front of it. I almost wonder if that's an O-ring. I didn't investigate that far into the gun, but I wonder if that's an O-ring, if that maybe is what's bad and it's not this part. But the rebuild kit for this area comes with all 3 pieces. So I'm going to examine it a little bit better, because if it's just this little rubber O-ring that went bad, easy fix. If I could find that size rubber O-ring at like Home Depot, Lowe's, or online, if I could find out what size that is, I could just order a bunch of those O-rings and fix it for probably pennies. But I figured I'd order a couple rebuild kits, because I had to pay for shipping. Shipping was like $8. So I ordered 2 of these kits. So I spent $28, which in theory, $80 would have bought me a new gun. But I'm just curious to see if that fixes this. I'm just one of them type of people that I want to see if I can fix it. And if that's the case, and somebody has one of these guns and they start developing a leak right there, we'll know if that's the problem. I'll probably do a separate video on it, and we'll try it just to see what happens. So I figured I'd bring that up real quick. But that's the fault, and the only fault that I found with this gun so far. That's the only thing that has worn out so far in the amount of time I've been using it. Okay, let's get some primer mixed up. This is a 4-to-1 mix. 4 parts primer, 1 part hardener. I'm using a medium hardener. I put 10% reducer in it. The reason why I put reducer in it is if you don't put reducer in it, this stuff is so thick when it comes out of the gun with this is a 1.7 tip in here. With a 1.7 tip, it still makes it real textury. So I put a little bit of reducer. But keep in mind, when you put a little bit of reducer, if you put 2 coats of this on with reducer, it's equivalent to putting 1 coat on without reducer, if you think about it, because you're thinning the product out, which means it's building less. So in theory, if you want 2 good coats and you want to put a little reducer in it, you're actually going to have to put 3 coats on with some reducer in there. So keep that in mind. So it's a 4-to-1 mix. So we're going to mix up a whole batch. And also, I take the strainer off of the bottom of the cup for 2K primer, because this strainer will fill up with primer and the gun will stop spraying. So now that we took that strainer off, we don't want to take this primer right from this gallon and pour it in here, okay? Because if a hunk or something is in there, it's going to travel into the gun, get stuck, and it's going to quit spraying halfway through your primering. You're going to have to take it apart, make a mess, clean it, find where the debris is in there and clean it out. So take a paper filter, and I just strain it before I put the hardener in it, because I don't think it's that big of an issue. The hardener really doesn't need to be strained, but I strained just the 2K primer. So we're just going to go ahead and, uh-oh, I grabbed the wrong stuff. This is epoxy primer. So now I got to throw this away. So this and this has to go in the garbage. Don't use this. I made a mistake here. If you just say, oh, that's just a tiny bit, I'll just put some 2K primer on top of that, it'll be fine, you're going to end up with a problem. So now we have to throw that away. I totally grabbed the wrong container. So let me get the other 2K, the right 2K primer mixed up. This is a epoxy primer in white. So we don't want to use that. We don't need to use that. So now I need to mix up the 2K primer. I'll be back. Okay, round 2. Now we're going to go ahead and mix up the right primer. 4-to-1 with 10% reducer. If you, like I said, you got to throw that away. You cannot don't wipe it out or anything. Just get rid of it. If you think you're doing something wrong, you more than likely are when it comes to paint. Or if you're not sure, look it up, because chances are you're going to be wrong on something and then you're going to screw something up. And the way paint costs these days, it's very important to make sure that you double check yourself if you're not sure about something. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it wasn't a real big deal if you screwed up. It was pretty cheap to get more material. Nowadays, like the dually, you're looking at $2,000 plus clear, plus primer and everything else. You're looking at over $3,000 in material to paint one car. So you really don't want to screw up, because then you're going to be paying a lot more money to get more materials. So this is going to take a little bit, because this stuff, as you can see how thick it is, and you see how even this strainer is wanting to clog up. And that's why you got to cut it out of the lid on these disposable cups, because if you don't, halfway through your primering, you're not going to be spraying primer anymore. So I need to let this drain down. I'm going to pour a little bit more in here and put the hardener in it, 10% reducer, and then we're going to go out there and get that primer. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry for about 10 minutes. I'm gonna put the other two coats off camera, then I'll come back and we'll take a look at it. I noticed there's some pinholes here and there, which is not a big deal. We can take a little bit of that glazing putty, fill in the pinholes before we sand down the bodywork, because before I paint, I'm gonna use a thin coat of epoxy primer before I put down the color. So that'll hide any little bit of glazing that I have to do with any minor pinholes. Now also, to get this 2K primer to dry better, don't go loading on one wet coat after another. Let it cure. Let it get to where you could just about touch it before you put the second coat on. What that's going to do is that is taking the chemicals, and they're gassing off of the surface. They're coming out of the primer. And if you keep piling on wet coat after wet coat without letting it dry between coats, what you're doing is you're causing all that those chemicals and those gases to get stuck in there. And what ends up happening is it takes a longer time to cure, because it has to work its way out through the material. So if you do one coat at a time and you let it set to the point where it's almost dry, you're going to have a much better drying process. It's going to dry quicker. You're going to get less shrink back in your paint jobs and stuff like that. So don't rush it. Like everything else, take your time and wait. Okay, all three coats are primer is done. I'm gonna actually heat these tonight probably do 120, 130 degrees, just because I want to sand these tomorrow afternoon and possibly get them painted. But we'll see how the day goes tomorrow. So a few pinholes like I was talking about, real small ones. Got one there, and I like to fill these in before I sand the primer, because once you start sanding the primer, you're going to get dust in that pinhole. You're going to stick a little bit of glazing putty in there. It's really not going to stick to anything other than the dust. So I always do it ahead of time. Right up here is real bad. This gets covered completely, but I'm still going to fill those in just in case for some dumb reason it doesn't cover. So that's it for this video, guys. These parts are ready tomorrow for sanding and painting. So if you guys are liking what you're seeing, please like, subscribe, share, hit the thumbs up. Also, don't forget to check out my giveaway video. On the giveaway video, you have to leave a comment on that video to qualify to be entered to win a spray gun and a shirt. So you have to push any kind of a comment you want on that video, the giveaway video only. If you put it on other videos, that's great that you're commenting, but it's not going to help you be entered to win the spray gun and t-shirt. Also, you have to be subscribed. So if you're interested in the giveaway, please subscribe, go to that video, find that video, it's a couple videos back, and leave a comment and you'll be entered. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. I plan on working on the dually in the morning and then getting these sanded down and getting them ready for paint. So have a good night, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.